and welcome to another episode of the Straight Talk About Small Business Success podcast. I've got a special guest with us. His name is Brad Englert. Brad, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure having you. Brad is an experienced author, advisor, technologist with over 40 years of experience in the private and public sectors. Accenture for 22 years, including 10 years as a partner, and then the University of Texas at Austin for 8 years. Out of that, 7 years was as a chief information officer. He's the founder of Brad Englert Advisory, and his recent book, Spheres of Influence: How to Create and Nurture Authentic Business Relationships, offers a practical guide to help emerging and established leaders develop and perfect the critical skill of building effective and lasting relationships. Brad, I am so excited. This book is about relationships. What we're going to talk about is relationships. The title of the book, Spheres of Influence. What are the spheres of influence? And you talk about like three principles that apply to business relationships. What are those?
So we're all surrounded by relationships, especially in business. And those closest to you are the internal sphere of influence. That could be your boss, your direct reports, executive leaders, and all your staff. You interact with them almost every day. Then you have an external sphere of influence, which are business relationships you have less direct impact, but are very important, like customers, peers and influencers, and strategic vendor partners. In all those relationships, there are three principles that can help you build authentic relationships. Number one is to understand what their goals and aspirations are. Who doesn't want to share that with you? You want people to know. You want your direct reports to know what your goals and aspirations are, so they can help you set and manage expectations. It's a simple concept, but not everyone takes the time to actually set those expectations. And it's so easy to not meet those expectations if you don't take the time to do it. Someone told me, "Oh, Brad, that's common sense." And then he said, "But not everyone has common sense."
Right.
And then third principle is genuinely caring about their success. So when I got to the university, I met with a professor who'd been there for 40 years. I worked with him 20 years earlier on an IT strategy for a statewide network here in Texas. And I said, "Okay, give me some advice." He goes, "Get out of the office and tell people you give a damn." And that was the best advice.
Wow.
Because you're not holed up in your office. You're actually going out. And I would meet with my peers and influencers every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how close I worked with their organizations. And over time, built a network of relationships. And my 7 direct reports did the same thing. So we had 70 to 80 ongoing relationships across a 70,000 person university. And that became our nervous system. And we would ask how our services are being delivered. We would see if they had any concerns. We would let them know, "Oh, we're going to change 21,000 phones to voice over IP. It's going to happen in 6 months. Don't worry. We'll help you through that." They would share rumors with me. "Brad, I heard a rumor that there's no diesel in the generator at the data center." I said, "Well, that's a good rumor. I'll go check it out." Well, the generator ran on natural gas. So it's a great rumor, but
there was a rumor.
But so we were able to nip it in the bud right away. So I think it's a key to get out of your office, and you can do it virtually too. You don't have to be in person,
Right.
but that's a good way to genuinely show you care.
Yeah. So let's talk about like the first thing you said, goals and aspirations. How do you understand the goals and aspirations? Let's talk from a standpoint of for your clients. How do you understand their goals and aspirations of our clients? And then how do we understand the goals and aspirations of people that are reporting to us, our team members, our employees?
Great question. With your customers, especially in the consulting world, no one calls you when there are no problems, lots of money, and plenty of time. They usually call when there are lots of problems, not money is tight, and there's a schedule problem. And so you just ask, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? And see how you can help them. And sometimes you can't help them, but you can connect them with someone who can help them.
Hmm.
So, and then often they'll come back at a later point and they'll have a problem you can help solve. These relationships last years, sometimes decades. I had a customer of mine who 20 years later called me, said her son was applying, who's an attorney, was applying for a job at the university. Would I help? And I said, well, of course I help. I knew him when he was 5 years old. So,
Hmm.
but she felt comfortable calling me, and I was able to
Hmm.
work with him and let him know that all universities share information with each other. Attorneys and universities do that. So when I had a contract for Google, I got the contract from University of California, Berkeley. We didn't
Hmm.
start with a blank sheet of paper. And
Hmm.
so he tapped into that knowledge of that organization and understood what the issues were, higher ed legal issues, and he got the job.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Now, what, so understanding the goals and aspirations of your clients, and you say you ask them, why don't people, entrepreneurs, business owners, don't ask? What gets in the way?
I think sometimes the entrepreneurs I talked with are so enamored with their product that
Mm,
they're trying to fit that peg into a square hole.
mm,
And they're more interested in selling a transactional selling than
mm,
actually taking the time to know more about the organization. Do your homework before you show up.
mm,
You know, most companies that you're going to serve have a website. You know what their mission is, you know what their values are. I've had vendors show up and they haven't even looked at my website. It's like,
mm,
that's not that hard.
mm,
Um, so, so doing your homework up front and then saying, what can I offer that could help solve those problems?
mm,
And I think what gets in the way is they're too enamored with whatever product they're selling and turns into a transactional discussion.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. And what about like for with team members? How does one understand goals, aspirations? Same thing as it is with clients and customers. It's just simply ask them.
Yeah. So when I came to the university, we had 330 people in central information technology, and the culture was one of heroics, fire drills. Wait till it breaks and then swoop in and be a hero. Well, that's the opposite of how I like to work. I like to proactively work. So we avoid problems and we don't need heroics. And when problems do arise, we have a way to deal with them consistently and effectively. So my first 90 days, I met with all my direct reports and I said, okay, what's working well? What's not working well? If
Mm,
you had unlimited budget, what would you invest in?
mm,
What kind of career development do you want to have? Do you want to be the chief information officer one day? If
mm,
so, when I go on vacation, I'll make you the acting chief information officer. If you don't want to do that, you maybe want to do your technology role, we can do that for you. And so just really taking the time to in that first 90 days, because there might be some small course corrections you can do that all of a sudden kind of unleashes the empowerment of your direct reports. Um, and then bake that into continuous feedback So when they do a great job in front of the customer or executives, pull them aside after the meeting and said, you did a great job. You don't have to
Mm,
wait for an annual review to talk about good things and things that are not so good. You
yeah.
need to have a bias towards action. But I like to meet with my direct reports in their offices. Well, why would I do that? I have a office in the ivory tower. I could have them schlep
Mm,
across campus
mhm,
and come to me, but I purposefully met in their offices because one, walking across campus, I would bump into a lot of people I work with, my staff, my customers, peers, influencers, leadership. You don't do that if you're holed up in your office. I walk through their workspace. Well, what does that say? That say all their staff see that I come to their boss
mhm,
to once a week to see what how we can work better together. Um, showing the flag is really important. Um, and then make sure in your one-on-ones you're focused on issues. What is it they're struggling with? I had one direct report who I had recently hired, and he said, Brad, I'm really concerned that this project is supposed to be done this summer, and I'm not sure how it could get completed with quality by the summer. It was probably March. And I said, look, it took us 40 years to get this way. We don't need to do it in the summer. You map out when what schedule would be you'd be
mm,
able to deliver with quality, and we'll change
mm,
it. Now, what did that tell you? He had the courage to say
mm,
something. He didn't just gut it up, keep
mhm,
quiet, and
mm,
then create a train wreck
mm,
where now I have customers that are upset.
mm,
So I think creating that safe work environment, that safe ecosystem where it's better to speak up and avoid a problem than keep quiet and create a problem. There's a guy named Vlasic. Vlasic had a pickle company, and he said, "I want good news fast and bad news faster." And that's what I
mhm,
wanted. It's like
mm.
because I might need to tell the executive leaders there's a problem, and I need to know right away if there's a problem.
Right. Yeah. It looks like, I mean, you kind of, you created a certain type of culture in the company through the way you did this, the way you acted, the way you walking across to your subordinate's office
Hmm.
that sent a certain type of a message
Hmm.
for the others to do that in their interactions
Yes,
and that,
you want to model the behaviors. First
yeah.
thing I noticed is we didn't really have our values articulated back to the fire drill mentality. So I
Mm,
spent time with our direct reports based on input from the campus that
mm,
they wanted trustworthiness, they wanted collaboration.
mm,
Um, and number one was family first. I'm in Austin, Texas. I cannot
mm,
compete with the global technology giants here in town on salary. But what I
mm,
can compete on is lifestyle, life balance. So
mm,
I would say you come in, work hard for 8 hours, then go home. If you have a school play to go to, we have 330 people who will back you up. Go to the school play, go to the doctor's office. If you're sick, stay home. Don't be a hero. Take vacations, do your training, don't put it off. And I would model those behaviors, but we would
mm,
have those values posted on our website. Everyone who joined the organization had a mandatory orientation session where we discuss those values with the management team. And if someone skipped out, I'd find them and get them to the next one. No one could not understand what our values were. And
mm,
then I wrote a blog once a week for 8 years and reinforced a lot of those values. I would give kudos to staff who did, um, proactively solved a problem. I would apologize for when we messed up because
mm,
if you have 330 people, 52,000 students, 21,000 staff, 4,000 faculty, things are gonna things are gonna
Mm.
go wrong. So, but just to have the courage to say, okay, here's the situation, we're gonna fix it, we'll make sure it doesn't happen again. And that again, building trust with your customers.
So, Brett, I want to hear your perspective. Uh, a listener, somebody who's viewing this interview right now, this episode of ours, and what you shared, and they say, Brett, you don't understand. We're trying to work as fast as we can. This is a busy organization. We're trying to just keep alive with profits and staying in business. We have no time for doing what you're saying to do for me that I need to do. What's your quick answer, reaction to what I just shared?
Just start with one relationship. It could be your boss, it could be a customer. You don't have to boil the ocean. Start with one relationship that you want to invest some time in. And over time, you'll find you're spending less time than if you hadn't done that because your expectations are set and you're not creating problems by not taking the time to do that. But just start with one.
Hmm. And so, what would that look like? And I appreciate you sharing that. A 10-person organization, maybe there are two owners and 8 employees, team members. Who is that one, and how often are you meeting, and what does that look like? How does that roll out day to day, week to week?
Yeah, I would start with my customers and I would evaluate, who are my best customers? Why are they my best customers?
Mm,
Um, my philosophy is the customer isn't always right. I've fired customers because it wasn't working for them or me. Um, but you have to prioritize. And so I would say, where are your revenues coming from? And then go work with those one or two, three
mm,
customers to make sure you're all headed in the right direction. Same thing with vendors. Where are you spending money?
mm,
Um, Not all your vendors are strategic, nor are they partners. Yeah,
mm,
some are just transactional. Fine, you don't need to meet with them. But those where you're spending the most money, it
mm,
behooves you to invest what, an hour a month, hour a quarter. I would meet with my strategic vendor partners 1 hour every quarter. That doesn't take
mm,
much,
right.
but it kept us aligned. And, they helped us, you get more with honey than you do vinegar.
Mm. Yeah. What are you expecting to get from that 1 hour interaction when you're meeting with a vendor? What are your expectations of them, or what kind of an outcome are you looking from that 1 hour?
Yeah, I actually gave them a list of what my expectations were. And number one was understand what the goals of my organization are. We
Mm,
have priorities that change every year. I shared those priorities with them
mm,
and asked how could they help. And
mm,
then I would say, tell me what you see on the horizon that I can't see, that I can anticipate a year or two from now that I should be investing in. And
mm,
three, I'm going to have problems. Sometimes the service breaks. I need to be able to have escalation. So usually when I bring that account rep in, I bring his boss or her boss in
mm,
so I have a natural escalation when there are issues. But we would just touch base. I had one vendor who we were late paying, and if you don't pay them within a month, it costs us money with interest. So it was bad for both of us. And so
mm,
I reached out to our accounting people and we fixed that. And we were never late again.
mm. Yeah. Some of the things that were going on in my mind when you were sharing, the vendor relationship and bringing them in. Uh, Strategic, you were being very strategic in
Mhm.
asking the questions and not tactical. It's like, all right, let's look at things beyond the here and now. What could
Mhm.
have happened? What trends are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And
Mhm.
so that I feel like it's a strategic mindset. And
Yes.
also you're coming from a place of humility, and you're not coming from a place of I'm the expert, I'm the customer. It's like
No,
this is a partnership,
I'm a humble practitioner.
right? That's kind of how important is all that? Like when having these types of meetings.
Well, I'm going to trust people until they prove me otherwise. And
Mm,
uh, I'd say most of my vendor partners, strategic vendor partners, were right there lockstep with me and very supportive. I had one uh, vendor who actually changed the product to help a university our size be more effective. Well, why did they do that? Because it's now a better product for universities of our size. And I actually built a relationship with the senior vice president for sales, in addition to my account people, because I wanted him to know that if he helped us, his product would be more marketable to the top 40 Research One universities in the country. And that's exactly what happened. Most of them moved to that product.
hmm. Yeah, that's amazing.
So
Brad, this is
I had one vendor who service was breaking and it was
mm,
affecting the faculty and staff. And I kind of raised up the escalation change. And finally, it was so bad we had half day outages. I halted the project and I said, no more people are moving to your product till we get this fixed. But I was too low down in the organization. This is a global technology company. So I thought, how can I get higher up in the organization? And I remembered the partner who hired me at Accenture was on the Accenture board, and he would know this global company and could connect me with someone in the global company. Well, it turned out he served on a board of a jointly owned company between Accenture and this global company. And the woman responsible for my issues was on that board. He
mm,
was the chairman of the board. So he called her, and I got a call immediately saying, how can I help? And I
mm,
said, Susan, we've got a 5 alarm fire, and you are giving us a 1 alarm response. I don't
mm,
want to be in the newspapers. You don't want me to be in the newspapers.
mm,
We need help. And she committed to help, funded independent study because there were problems on both sides. And then we mapped out an approach, and she sent her engineers to Austin 5 times over the year, and they solved all 40 of the issues.
mm,
And then we restarted, and it was flawless after that.
mm, mm,
But, first stopping, it's really hard to stop something once you get it started, but stopping, then figuring out who can help you. And this
mm,
back to your business relationships, right? So I found a prior boss who was very supportive of me 25 years earlier, who also went to the University of Texas. And
mm.
he helped me without hesitation. And we solved that problem that could have been, really bad.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Brett, this has been amazing. I'm really enjoying it. You wrote the book Spheres of Influence. As we kind of wrap up in the next minute or so, what led you to writing this book?
Well, I've been fortunate to have really good mentors and bosses over the years. And I enjoyed being a mentor. And I enjoyed sharing the stories. I wanted to share them with a wider audience, and that's really why I wrote the book. You don't have to be born with this ability, you can learn it, and I wanted to show people how to do it.
Yeah. And for you, it was a 5-year project
Yes, yes.
writing this book. So you've really put your heart and
Labor
soul,
labor of love.
labor of love is what it is. How can folks get their hand on this book?
It's on Amazon and
And it's a
anywhere.
bestseller. You
Yeah,
mentioned to me
in three
earlier, right?
three categories: leadership training, mentoring and coaching, and customer relations. So I had some uh, software vendors who used to work for me. He bought it for his sales team. He says, you all need to read this book.
Yeah.
It's also, there's uh, on Amazon, there's a link to an audiobook and an ebook. So they're different vehicles there. I have a YouTube channel. There's a book trailer and some fun videos that, yeah, people might enjoy. And I will send you a link customized for your podcast that you can share when you post the podcast.
That's awesome. Great. Folks, I really encourage you to get Brad's book. He has got 40 years of experience. Accenture, one of the top consulting companies, University of Texas at Austin, one of the top schools in the country, as a CIO, Chief Information Officer. So it brings both, a lot of practical experience to the table. So I really highly encourage you guys to get his book. Brett, this was really enjoyable. I got a lot from it, listening to you, hearing you. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you.
Um,
I enjoyed it.
yeah, you take care.
Bye bye.